Jessica dreamed of being independent and successful from an early age. She studied hard, participated in all school and student Olympiads and competitions, and won prizes. In appearance, she was not particularly different, but if you looked closely, you could see a charming beauty in her. Jessica knew what she wanted, and she had big plans for life. Since her main goal was her studies and career, she had neither the time nor the desire for relationships with boys. She met Stephen at university, and she could not even think that this particular guy would change her whole life. He was not bad to look at. Many girls at university ran after him, and he did his best to impress only Jessica. Jessica was certainly flattered by the attention of such a guy, and she could not resist his long and romantic courtship. Afterwards, these meetings turned her head, and she fell head over heels in love with him. Many of my friends keep saying that this is true love, love for life. Stephen immediately noticed this beautiful girl with a charming smile, bright green eyes, framed by thick dark eyelashes and luxurious hair below the shoulders. And after a while, the guy realized that he was in love, and fortunately, the feelings were mutual. They started dating, and after some time passed, they got married. Very soon after the wedding, Jessica realized that she was pregnant. Stephen accepted this news with great joy, although they had not planned for children yet because they did not have anywhere to live on their own. They were each renting their homes, and there was simply nowhere to go. Stephen and Jessica worked hard to achieve their goal. When Jessica went on maternity leave, Stephen remained the main breadwinner. He was extremely hardworking and responsible, which is why he quickly climbed the corporate ladder, and his salary also increased. When their daughter Brittany was born, Jessica devoted herself to motherhood and taking care of the house. And a few years later, when their daughter was already going to kindergarten, they were finally able to buy an apartment. But at the family meeting, they decided that it was too early for Jessica to go to work. Brittany was often ill, and besides, Jessica attended various club meetings. And since all the grandmothers lived far enough away from them, there was no one to take care of the child except Jessica. Fortunately, Stephen's earnings by this point were decent enough, so there was enough for everything. Jessica was an excellent hostess. She cooked perfectly, and their house was as clean as if in a museum. Her husband was waiting for a hot, delicious dinner after work, and in the morning, he had pressed trousers and shirts ready for him. As time went on, Brittany had already started school, but Jessica still didn't work. No, she was not lazy. She just lost and forgot a lot of things in her profession during the time that she did not work in her specialty. Now, it was difficult to get back into the same rut. But Stephen did not insist. On the contrary, he liked his domestic wife. Brittany was 11 years old when Jessica realized that she was expecting a baby again. The ultrasound showed that they will have twins. At the appointed time, the boys were born, and they looked just alike. But the children were born prematurely, so they were also very small. While she was feeding one, the other was crying, and vice versa. The days for Jessica were mixed up with the night. It's good that Brittany is already independent, Jessica thought, rocking her sons continuously. And it was true. Brittany not only kept up with her studies, lessons, and clubs, but she had time to help her mother, unlike Stephen. Coming home, Stephen began to take out his stress more and more on his wife, and Jessica became more and more immersed in everyday life with incessant screams, porridge, and diapers. She always tried to justify her husband's behavior, and she sincerely believed that most men accept children once they can already communicate and play with them. Moreover, her husband was very busy at work, and she knew this from him, as he often said, "This is not an apartment, but a kindergarten of some kind. Can I have a little rest after coming home from work? I've been working all day without leaving my office even for lunch, and that's why I want some peace at home." Well, these are children. How could she explain it to them? Jessica tried to calm her husband at such moments, but he only left, shutting himself in the room so that he would not be disturbed. Jessica laid out the blocks again and again, built pyramids, and played with the kids. She loved her children with all her heart, and it seemed to her that this was her destiny, and no matter how difficult it was for her without outside help, this situation is temporary, because children grow up so fast. But every day, the gap between the spouses became bigger and bigger. Claims, understatement, resentment, all this accumulated day after day, and at one moment poured out. Stephen came home from work earlier than usual, silently went into the room, opened the closet, and began to put his things in a suitcase. "Are you being sent on a business trip?" she asked, not understanding anything about what was happening. "I'm leaving," Stephen said quietly. "What do you mean? Where to?" And then Stephen broke down, perhaps for the first time in their entire life together. "I'm leaving you. Have you not looked in a mirror lately? Look who you've become like. I'm already tired of you with your eternal whining." "Is that all?" Jessica responded in a calm tone, but barely held back tears as she asked, "Are you tired of me?" "But why don't you just tell me about it? I thought you loved me. Your looks bother me. Have you seen yourself in nothing but sweatpants and sneakers, and you have an ever-present ponytail on your head? I'm not talking about makeup at all. All my friends' wives look like they're going to rock. You're like a dirty girl alone." Stephen spoke to his wife without mincing words. "What about the children?" Jessica asked in a somewhat detached voice. "And what about the children? They will grow up and understand. I will help financially. I will leave this apartment to you, although I could take my share." She turned around and left the room. Tears blurred her eyes, but she tried to hide her face, as she had pride and dignity since childhood. Grandma used to say, no matter how hard it is for you, don't show it to a person who intentionally wants to offend you. If you're going to cry, then do it into a pillow. Meanwhile, Stephen seems to have taken his things and left the apartment. After crying until morning, she never closed her eyes, and in the morning, having cleaned herself up, she tried to behave as if nothing had happened. She could not hide her mood from Brittany, so she had to tell her what had happened. Her daughter's reaction startled her. Jessica was afraid that her daughter would cry or withdraw into herself, but Brittany calmed her mother as best she could, assuring her that she would help with everything and that they would live no worse than others. From that day on, their lives changed abruptly. All funds began to run out quickly, and there was no help from Stephen. When Jessica tried to contact him by phone, a woman who introduced herself as Stephen's new love picked up the phone and, not in the mildest form, asked them not to bother them anymore. Jessica didn't know what to do. It was necessary to find a job urgently because the twins had already started going to the nursery. But no one was eager to hire a woman with 3 children, especially with 2 of them being so young. One day, after failing another interview, Jessica got upset and drank coffee and looked out the window analyzing her life. A phone call interrupted her thoughts. Her friend, who she studied at the institute with, called and was very friendly. Realizing that something had happened to Jessica, she quickly asked for a visit. When her friend Gloria arrived at the apartment, Jessica told her to have a look around. "It's no wonder Stephen ran away," Gloria said from the doorway. "I'm sorry, but you look like a housebug. Tell me, where did that Jessica that laughed all the time that I once knew go?" "I'm not laughing right now. Do you need help with work? Do you have anything in mind for me?" Jessica asked with a heavy sigh. Gloria thought about it. "There is, but for this you need a transformation." They spent the rest of the day shopping and chose an outfit for Jessica. Then they went to the beauty salon for a new hairstyle, manicure, and makeup. After 2 days, Jessica was in a hurry for an interview for the position of administrator in the most prestigious hotel in the city. The director was Gloria's husband's brother, so Jessica was given the job without hesitation. In addition, she immediately made friends with the team, mainly consisting of girls about her age. Jessica made friends with one of the other girls, who offered to cover Jessica's shifts if she ever needed it. At home, Brittany helped her with the twins. She took the kids from the nursery when Mom was at work. Stephen never got in touch, and he did not seek to see the children, for which angered Jessica. Jessica certainly liked almost everything at work, except for the uniform, which had to be worn by order of her superiors. But it seemed to Jessica that the length of the skirt was indecently short, which she immediately informed the director with a request to issue a longer dress. Having been refused, she decided to be patient and not get into trouble. This job was absolutely necessary for her, but she felt uncomfortable, often adjusting the hem of her skirt. Once an important guest stopped at their hotel, the girls told various tall tales about him, but the fact that everyone disliked him was an indisputable fact. He is always dissatisfied with everything, finds fault with everything. Everyone dreams that he doesn't come on their shift, the maid Monica chattered. In general, from the conversations of colleagues, Jessica realized that he has a serious business and is friends with the director of the hotel. Therefore, it was necessary to please him, otherwise you could lose your job. And already on Jessica's next shift, an unpleasant incident happened. It all started with the fact that the room attendant of this guest came running all in tears. Then he called the administrator for an explanation, and Jessica, anxious about the situation, hurried to settle it. On the one hand, she really wanted to look at this man since he stopped by, and he wasn't on her shift, and on the other hand, it was scary. Well, I suppose he won't bite, Jessica thought after knocking on the room. When the room opened, she saw a handsome middle-aged man, but with a very dissatisfied face, which did not bode well. The man was wearing only trousers, which made Jessica feel embarrassed and blush a little, but he quickly went on the offensive. "What kind of administrator are you if you can't keep track of your employees?" he began. "But first, I would like to clarify the essence of your claims," Jessica said, trying to be as polite as possible, giving him her best charming smile. This discouraged the man a little, but only for a second. He continued menacingly. "Not only did she bring me a wet towel, but also the breakfast was cold. Do you think I should eat this slop?" Having said that, he knocked over the breakfast tray on the floor. Naturally, all its contents were immediately absorbed and smeared on the expensive carpet. The room was considered one of the best. His act caused a storm of indignation on the part of Jessica, who no longer tried to restrain herself. "Do you know who you are? You are a real cad. You would do well to learn good manners. You seem to be able to withdraw business, but alas, not to communicate with people. Do you think that since you are a wealthy man and a friend of the owner, that everyone here should be afraid of you and worship you? You're wrong. And let me be fired today, but I will not be silent. Apparently, the truth was said about you that you are a real snob and a fool." Saying this, Jessica stomped out of the room, constantly tugging her skirt. She did not see that he remained standing, looking after her. Jessica immediately went to write a statement, realizing that after the incident, dismissal was inevitable. When she entered the director's office, she found him on the phone. He motioned her to a chair, inviting her to sit down and wait, and then learning about the reason for her visit. He said there had been a misunderstanding, and he had no complaints about her. Early in the morning, the next working day, a surprise awaited Jessica. A huge bouquet of unique and insanely beautiful flowers was on the table, and inside it was a note from which she understood the sender's name. It was the fool with whom she had quarreled the day before. His name was Jacob, and he invited Jessica to dinner that evening. Naturally, Jessica, by virtue of her nature, considered this just a mockery, so she decided to ignore the invitation. But she couldn't help but think about him often. After that, Jessica went to the hospital with the boys. It turned out that they had fallen from their rocking chair together and received severe bruises and concussion. The nurse who came into the room asked Jessica to come out to the waiting room. Jessica was amazed when she saw that Jacob was waiting for her, shifting from one foot to the other. He timidly invited her to talk outside. After making sure that the children were asleep, Jessica went outside. "I came to apologize. You didn't come to dinner then, after that incident. I think about you all the time. I have not met such girls for a long time who are not afraid to stand up for themselves, even at the cost of their work. You're proud, and I like it. And also," Jacob hesitated a little, "let me take care of you." But I have 3 children who I love dearly. How do you see it? Jessica said in a trembling voice. Wonderful! I adore children. I'm sure we can be friends. A few years later, Jessica and Jacob had a daughter together, and the whole family went on vacation. At the airport, Jessica accidentally ran into her ex-husband Stephen, who could hardly recognize his wife, a stunningly beautiful young woman. Noticing him, none of the children wanted to approach him. Jessica passed by, feeling his gaze on her.